I'm Bob Phillips. Back in 1983, I was asked to prepare a feature story for television about a Joplin firm that repaired department store mannequins. I didn't know it then, but from that beginning, I went on to do over 460 TV features, which were called the Phillips Files. Done in the four-state area, they aired between 1983 and 1997. Along with some talented photographers, we covered a lot of ground, traveling interstate highways and country lanes, up mountains and down hollers, to document the people, places, and things that make up this many-faceted area. Here, then, are a few of the Phillips Files. This is the showboat Branson Belle, the new queen of Table Rock Lake. Co-owned by Silver Dollar City and famed entertainer Kenny Rogers, it's the largest excursion vessel operated on a landlocked waterway. The Belle carries on an honored riverboat tradition with two exceptions. It's not a gambling boat, and no alcohol is allowed on board. Construction on this $9 million attraction began on the banks of the lake in August of 1993 and was completed 18 months later.
Oftentimes a big project like this, you have a vision and then you have construction, and sometimes the two ends don't meet. But on this one, we were able to maintain the vision and keep it on time and on budget, and we're real happy with the product that evolved.
The big day came on April 13th, 1995, when Kenny Rogers christened the boat by breaking a bottle of river water on its port side. With a capacity of 650 passengers, the Belle is huge, over 10 stories tall, 278 feet long, and 78 feet wide. It weighs 2.5 million pounds. The twin stern paddle wheels are 16 feet wide and 24 feet in diameter and are powered by 3 diesel engines. Top speed is 11 miles an hour, but the Belle usually cruises at 6.
Well, it's taken quite a bit of getting used to. I've had a lot of extensive training, and this is my third stern wheel boat that I've been on, and it's all cumulative. Every day is a new and different experience.
The Belle runs 3 two-hour cruises a day, most of them sold out. Passengers can tour its 4 decks to watch the shore glide by before entering the 3-story Opera House for a full meal and the Showboat Jubilee, a musical comedy with a big cast of musicians, singers, and dancers. The ship's galley, by the way, prepares 2,500 meals a day. The showboat Branson Belle is an outstanding attraction that's sure to make a major contribution to the tourism industry hereabouts. To give you some idea, even before the Belle's maiden voyage, 250,000 tickets had been sold. By all means, come see this floating palace, but just to make sure, book your reservations well in advance. At the White River Landing near Branson, Bob Phillips, KODE News. Truetts Cave in Lanigan has long been a landmark tourist attraction. It's owned today by Joe and Gloria Davies. Recently, Gloria took us on a tour of this natural phenomenon. Opened in 1930, the cave is the last of several discovered and developed by J.A. Dad Truett, the legendary caveman of the Ozarks. The cave is so vast that parts of it are still unexplored. Geologists have pegged its age at around 15 million years. It's a favorite haunt of archaeologists and geologists who never seem to tire of studying its distinctive formations. Following Dad Truett's death in 1954, the cave passed through the hands of several owners and the grounds slowly began to deteriorate. The cave's popularity with tourists began to falter. Joe and Gloria bought it back in 1992 and have spent most of their time since putting it back into shape. Truetts Cave has something that sets it apart. An underground restaurant with a fireplace and a running natural spring. In the old days, it was immensely popular. Robert Ripley of Believe It or Not fame visited the restaurant and pronounced it unique in all the world. It hasn't been in operation for many years, but Gloria says she may have to do something about that.
I don't know if I will ever open it again, but I think I'm not going to have a choice. I think we're going to have to figure out some way to get it opened back up for people. I figure it's going to be 2 or 3 more years of going around the clock to really put it back to where it was. And it was the showplace of the 4th State area. We were told people waited in line for a block to get into the restaurant. They would go in and they would dip their own fish, and of course the chef would prepare it for them.
While they ponder the distinct possibility of reopening the restaurant, Joe and Gloria have plenty of other projects going on, including the addition of a picnic area and playground, along with a fish pond and a waterfall just outside the cave entrance. This natural wonder has been a prime tourist attraction for nearly 70 years. It's seen hard times recently, but now, under Joe and Gloria's care, Truetts Cave is coming back. In Lanigan, Missouri, Bob Phillips, KODE News. This is Power Site Dam at Forsyth, which harnesses water power for electricity. Built over 80 years ago, it changed the face of Taney County and turned the economy from agriculture to tourism. It's owned and operated by Empire District Electric Company. Tom Snyder is superintendent of the dam, and recently he gave us a short tour. Congress granted approval for the dam's construction in 1911. For 2 years, some 200 to 800 men worked on the project, most of them living at a camp set up near the site. When completed in 1913, it was officially named the Ozark Beach Dam, but locally it was known as Power Site, and the 22-mile-long impoundment it formed became Lake Taneycomo. Empire bought the dam in 1930, and it's still the only hydroelectric facility Empire maintains. It's 1,300 feet long and 50 feet high, with a 600-foot-long spillway. The power station on the far shore houses 4 60-cycle generators with a combined capacity of 16,000 kilowatts. It isn't the largest, longest, or tallest dam around, but Tom says it's highly important because of its hydroelectric method of operation.
Hydro in about any form is about as efficient as you're going to get as far as power generation. There's not very many moving parts, there's not coal to bring in and out, there's not gas or oil. It's also good for a power system in that we can be from 0 to full output in a matter of a few minutes, where some of the other plants take longer to get there. So we don't produce a lot of power out of this plant, but it's still something that's important to our system in that we can be at 0 and bring it to 16 megawatts and back down to 0 in just a matter of a minute or 2.
Today, Lake Taneycomo is a haven for vacationers, especially fishermen, since the 54-degree water is ideal for trout, walleye, bass, and catfish. And above the lake stands Power Site Dam, which created the largest water impoundment in the country for the production of electric power. The Power Site Dam has served Empire District and the people hereabouts long and well, and it's also played a major part in the development of this popular recreational area. At the Power Site Dam in Forsyth, Bob Phillips, KODE News. The Missouri Sports Hall of Fame is located just south of Springfield. This $5 million, 22,000 square foot museum highlights some of the greatest names in sports history, and they're all from Missouri or spent their careers in the Show Me State. Founded by Springfield entrepreneur John Q. Hammonds, the hall opened in July of 1994. Here, the visitor can see memorabilia of such legendary names as baseball's Stan Musial, Bill Verdon, and George Brett, basketball's Easy Ed Macaulay, golf's Hale Irwin, a Joplin native, auto racer Bill Elliott, water skiing medalist Christy Freeman, 1936 Olympic gold medalist Helen Stevens, Harold Ensley of fishing fame, and in the coach's corner, MU's Don Farrow and Joplin's own Russ Kaminsky. Elsewhere, there are many interactive displays, such as the batting cage, where Major League pitchers throw their best stuff at you at over 90 miles an hour. You can announce a Cardinal game with Harry Carey and Jack Buck, or sit in on one of Whitey Herzog's Cardinal pep talks. Whitey's lifelike figure is a great crowd pleaser. Hall officials expect that in the future some 30,000 to 40,000 people will visit here each year. Assistant Director Chris Thixton says no matter which sport you prefer, there's something here for everyone.
Everybody has something new. I mean, everybody has their own place that they like. You know, a lot of the kids like the ball machine, the announcer's booth. We have people come through and say, oh, I remember Russ Kaminsky when. Or somebody else, or I remember Bill Verdon when. Or I remember Bob Gibson pitching, and I remember when my dad took me up to see him.
Every year, some 10 to 12 new members are inducted into the Hall of Fame, and each one will, the museum hopes, attract more memorabilia to add to this already outstanding collection. I asked Chris what one artifact he'd most like to have for display.
The team trophy from a Missouri team that wins the national championship or the world championship. I mean, I think that epitomizes what the Hall of Fame is all about.
The Missouri Sports Hall of Fame has already proven itself to be a top-drawer, first-class attraction. Any sports fan would get a kick out of a visit here. It's a place to remember the good old days and the great athletes this state has produced. In Springfield, Bob Phillips, KODE News. This is Edwards Mill on the campus of the College of the Ozarks. In architecture and tradition, it's a faithful replica of the many 19th century water-powered grist mills which once dotted the Ozark Hills. Named for Memphis businessman Hubert Edwards, a college benefactor, the mill is a prime tourist attraction, and since its opening in 1972, has played host to some 75,000 visitors a year. The mill is capable of operating on water or electric power. The large 14-foot water wheel is turned by the overflow from a nearby lake, and when the lake level isn't high enough, a 20-horsepower motor can be brought into play. Jim Davis is the supervisor and head miller at the mill, which is one of several campus industries operated by students. Each semester, 20 to 30 students learn the ancient art of milling, which Jim says is an Ozark heritage.
We're just trying to keep a tradition alive, is what we're trying to do here at the Edwards Mill. There's not very many mills in operation of the old grist mill type.
The 3 vintage millstones are capable of turning out 1,000 pounds of product a day. The largest stone, 48 inches in diameter, is 200 years old. 2 smaller 30-inch stones are 150 years old. By the way, the heavy timbers in the building are up to 180 years old and were used originally in 3 mills near Carthage. The mill grinds such products as whole wheat flour, yellow and white cornmeal, and white grits, which are packaged in 2-pound sacks and sold to visitors. The mill exhibits numerous old grist mill artifacts and is also home to several student artisans. In the basement, basket weavers have set up shop, and on the top floor is a weaving studio where students use authentic old-fashioned hand looms. Edwards Mill is open throughout the year, and there's no admission charge. There are only a handful of grist mills still operating in the Ozarks, and each one is a valuable link to our past. If you haven't visited Edwards Mill, plan to come soon. Here, history comes alive. At the School of the Ozarks at Point Lookout, Missouri, Bob Phillips, KODE News. Carl's Gun Shop and Museum is located in downtown El Dorado Springs. It's home to one of the most complete private firearm collections in America. Carl McAllister and his son Terry are the owners. In the ballroom-sized museum on the upper floor, the visitor can see row after row of vintage and modern rifles, shotguns, and handguns of every make, model, and caliber. There are 1,100 of them here, produced by such famous names as Winchester, Browning, Remington, Weatherby, Ruger, Smith & Wesson, and Colt. Carl's love of guns started 44 years ago when he began to buy, sell, and trade a few. He says he's sold over 35,000 of them. The museum opened in May of 1994, and recently Carl turned the gun shop business over to son Terry, which allows him more time with his impressive collection. He says he never saw a gun he didn't like, and admits that what started as a hobby sort of got out of hand.
Bought guns to start with there and play with them a while and then trade them off because I didn't have money enough to keep them. And whenever I trade off 3 or 4 of them, make $4 or $5 a piece on them, first thing you know, I had enough saved up I could buy one to keep. And then I broke again.
I work more in the business. I enjoy the museum very much, and I'm fascinated with the older guns also. But I just don't have enough gray hairs on my head to give people the information that they need on that.
Many museum specimens have historical significance. For example, this rare Johnson rifle, a prototype which nearly became the World War II GI's rifle. It lost out to the Garand. This Savage 45 automatic is one of 200 made in 1906 for U.S. Army field trials. It could have been the GI pistol, but the Colt was chosen instead. And how about this lever-action shotgun? This old-timer was built by Remington back when this century was young. Carl says that since his museum opened, some 25,000 visitors from all 50 states and 10 foreign countries have stopped by to look it over. If you're a firearms enthusiast like me, and you've seen the Saunders collection in Berryville and the J.M. Davis Museum in Claremore, you owe yourself one more. So come see this remarkable collection in Carl's Museum. In El Dorado Springs, Bob Phillips, KODE News. Rawlings Sporting Goods in Ava, Missouri is part of a time-honored tradition. For over 100 years, Rawlings has been the largest domestic manufacturer of baseball gloves for high school, college, and professional athletes. Over half of today's pros use gloves made at this plant. Bob Clevenhagen is the master designer for Rawlings. He showed us through the glove-making process. There are 15 to 25 pieces of steer hide leather in a ball glove. It takes 25 workers performing 20 separate operations to make one. The finished product can cost up to $150. The company makes 60 different kinds, and 40 of them are professional models. 80,000 gloves a year are made at the Ava plant. Bob Clevenhagen is well known on the pro circuit. He's been designing gloves for many years. Here's one of his clients, superstar Ken Griffey of the Seattle Mariners. Ken likes this six-fingered model. It works for him. Baltimore Orioles star Cal Ripken is another customer. The glove Cal uses is one of many Bob has designed. Rawlings has made gloves since the early days of baseball, and Bob says there are two main differences in the ones made today.
35 years ago, when you bought our glove or anybody's glove, you had to oil it. You had to soak it in oil, you had to sleep on it, you had to pound it. This leather comes in today, and this leather's ready to play with. They've tanned the oil right into the leather. The second biggest change is, I believe, going from two-handed catching to one-handed catching. Players today just run out there and the glove catches for them. It snaps shut for them.
Come to think of it, you don't see many two-handed catches these days. Bob says some pros can use the same glove 6 or 7 years. Others can wear one out in a single season. 70% of today's Rawlings gloves are black, but they come in several colors, like this one, a special model that's presented each year to the winners of the Gold Glove Fielding Award. This is a Rawlings glove circa 1940, and this is the high-tech model used today. Next time you watch a ball game, notice how many players use one of these. The pros have always sworn by Rawlings gloves, and they all come from right here. In Ava, Missouri, Bob Phillips, KODE News. The Harold Bell Wright Museum stands in Mutton Hollow at Branson. It's devoted to the author who brought the Ozark Mountains to the attention of the world. It was opened in 1984 by Wright's son, Norman, as a place to house his father's memorabilia. Recently, curator George Pithan showed us around. Here, the visitor can see Wright's books, paintings, furniture, tools, and firearms. And in a place of prominence is the original handwritten manuscript of The Shepherd of the Hills, his most famous novel. This bittersweet tale about simple Ozark hill folk and the land around them endeared itself to readers around the world. It's been made into a movie 5 times, along with 10 other films based on Wright's novels. A native New Yorker, Wright was already an accomplished painter, woodworker, and itinerant preacher when he moved to the Branson area for health reasons in 1896. The Shepherd of the Hills, his second novel, was published in 1907 and was an instant success. It's widely credited with starting the tourism industry in the Ozarks.
The Ozarks area is a beautiful area. And as far as the book, Harold Bell Wright brings out this beauty in the way he describes the situations, not only the characters, but the places. I think that it's going to hold its popularity because it is natural for people, and they come here for the beauty and also for the information about him.
By the time Harold Bell Wright died in 1944 at age 72, he had produced 19 novels, 5 of them with an Ozark setting. In all, his works sold over 10 million copies, which was a record for that time. Today, people from near and far come to Branson to visit the museum and the places he wrote about, like Old Matt's cabin, which figures prominently in The Shepherd of the Hills. It's still here and is a major tourist attraction. One writer wrote that Branson owes its success to the White River, the railroad, and Harold Bell Wright. But in a broader sense, the entire Ozarks could be said to be the legacy of this remarkable man. And this museum tells his story. At Mutton Hollow in Branson, Bob Phillips, KODE News. Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri is known as the crown jewel of the U.S. Air Force. Each year, this sprawling base plays host to an open house to display what's old and new in aviation. The most recent show drew 50,000 people. At every major air show, the warbirds from World War II are always great crowd pleasers. Most are operated under the banner of the Confederate Air Force. This is the Curtiss P-40 Warhawk, the star of combat in the China-Burma-India theater when flown by American volunteers known as the Flying Tigers. Japan's most famous fighter, the Zero, was represented. This one was modified from an AT-6 American trainer for use in the movie Tora, Tora, Tora. The finest fighter of the war was the North American P-51 Mustang. This one, named the Gunfighter, is one of about 100 P-51s still flying today. Here's the queen of the warbirds, the Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress. Named the Thunderbird, it's in perfect condition and owned by the Lone Star Flight Museum in Texas. Crew Chief T.C. Jones says it took 4 years and 25,000 man-hours to restore. He says operational warbirds are a vital part of aviation history, but with each passing year, their numbers slowly diminish.
Well, the outlook is a little doubtful in that we maintain this heritage. It's an expensive heritage, and it's not going to be easy to come by. As you know, everything nowadays, the cost is double and triple. And when you start dealing with anything aviation, it is extremely expensive. In time, these frames are not going to be able to handle the stress that they've handled all these years, and they're going to become static displays. Hopefully not in my lifetime.
In one highlight of the air show, spectators saw one of the rarest sights in aviation these days, a mock World War II dogfight between the Fortress, the Zero, and the Mustang. In this scenario, the Zero pursues the Fortress with machine guns blazing. The Fortress, in trouble, summons the mighty Mustang, which then shoots down the Zero in a trail of smoke. The old warbirds were state-of-the-art back in World War II. Today, this is the state-of-the-art. Next time, we'll take a close look at the stealth bomber and fighter. From Whiteman Air Force Base, Missouri, Bob Phillips, KODE News.